Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal are in front.
Raul promised us. He told us in no uncertain terms. He was very clear. We have a good plan. And now we know what it was. To get those sweet, sweet parachute payments, baby. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. Stan is counting checks, baby. Those parachute payments for relegation into the championship. They're coming in. And then we might even be able to win a title, right? Win the championship, bounce right back up. That's what we're looking at. Yo-Yo Club of the Future. Arsenal Football Club. Catch the fever. All right, so real quick housekeeping. I wish someone would do some housekeeping at Arsenal, but that apparently is not going to happen. So here, remember, we are trying to get Clive, any of us, definitely Clive, but definitely any of us, to sing a Christmas song this year, and we are running out of time to make that happen. So there is a lot of excellent coverage in The Athletic, and some of it's even from James McNicholas, which I got to say comes as a huge shock to me. So I got to admit, I've been impressed with it. James, if you're listening, keep up the good work, man. It's fantastic. You know, here I was thinking I'd sign up for Ornstein and Amy, and nope, it's James stuff I like. What can I say? The heart wants what the heart wants. Not bad on any of the podcasts they're doing, by the way. The Athletic has put out some really good podcasts. So anyway, enough about them. Just sign up at theathletic.com/Clive PAFC. Also, I guess you could sign up at theathletic.com/Stillberto/Yankee Gunner /Paul AFC, because they wouldn't do pausing in my pants, and they wouldn't let us have a fifth for Scott. But that's okay, because Scott's going to be hosting an analytics pod for us on the Patreon page. And it's going to be weekly as soon as he's done going to the happiest place on earth, which is not the Emirates. It is Disney World. And then the Enclosed is back. During the holiday season, we're going to be promoting the Enclosed. They have sexy drawers. And seeing as how we're missing sexiness on the football pitch, there's no reason why your partner can't be wearing sexy drawers. You'll hear about them later this pod. That is it. That is it for the housekeeping, except to say that when we get into the new year, we're probably going to go a little bit sponsorship free for a while to say thank you to everyone who is putting up with us not being sponsorship free. You know what? Sign up for Patreon. Oh, right now on our website, if you go to the win link, there's like the arsenalvisionpodcast.com/win. You can win an Arsenal shirt. You can win a year of The Athletic, or you can win a year of Patreon. So we're trying to give back to you guys and give you a chance to win some cool stuff. Lots going on. In any event, Tim's on Twitter at Stillberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Hello there to you too. Clive's on Twitter at Clive PAFC. Hello there.
Hello, hello.
Hello indeed. Okay, so yeah, this was a pile of hot steaming shit. And I got to admit, Clive and I did a rewatch for Patreon, and we did the first half, which was all I wanted to do. And then Clive said, we should do the second half. And then we had to do the second half too. But it was better than I expected. I thought it was really, really good. And like the dumb, foolish, moron, not smart person I am, I thought that would carry into this game. It did not. Tim, I think where we should start with this is the selection. And look, I think it is important to remember that Freddie Ljungberg has basically got one season of coaching kids under his belt and like a couple months of sitting next to the incomparable and incompetent Unai Emery. He's not ready to be the head coach of a massive club. He's not. And there should be no expectation that he would be. So none of this is Freddie's problem, and none of it is his fault, but he is in charge of it now. And it is interesting the way he is approaching this. It just feels like he is leaning into some of the curious selection issues that Emery promulgated. So I'm curious to get your take on his selection, and maybe if you have aspirations for how we might fix this with slightly different choices.
Yeah, excuse me. So I was again slightly unpleasantly surprised by the starting lineup, because again it was Ozil and Aubameyang wide, and I just think at this point in time when the problems with Arsenal, we've now come to a stage where they're part tactical, but a lot of this is confidence now, right? Like, we can see that. And I understand there's a lot of pontificating. How good actually are we? How good are our players? I understand all that. They're much better than this. And we know that. And we mustn't be silly and pretend that this is their level, because it's not. We saw that even last season, which wasn't a great season, they were much better than this. They're much better than this. Even last season when there were tactical things that weren't quite right. So there's a lot going on with confidence there. And Freddie alluded to that after the game, and I think that's really, really obvious. It's really obvious. It kind of jumps out at you. But when and this is where me, the experienced Premier League coach, is going to tell Freddie how to do his job.
I mean, look, you're on a podcast to give your opinion. You know what? I like the people who are like, you're not a manager, you don't know. I fully acknowledge that, but like, what are you supposed to do? Just mute your mic and we take the week off, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm not suggesting Arsenal actually take my advice, but I think when you've got a crisis of confidence, I've been saying this for the last few weeks, look after your good players, look after the players that can win you the game and make them feel good, make them feel comfortable. Because, you know, we've been on the slide, right, for a few weeks, and we need to get back up that slide. And what were we doing at the beginning of the season? We were playing shit, but our big players, or Aubameyang, were bailing us out. Now our big players aren't even bailing us out anymore because their confidence is shot. And in my eyes, that would be the first stage of improvement, right? Let's get the guys who can win us the game, even if because look, we're not going to play well. When we go to West Ham on Monday, we're not suddenly going to turn up with an amazing flowing performance where everyone's super confident. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for at least several games it takes to get that confidence back. So where we need, in my view, to build back up to is at least build back up to that point where our big players can win us the game and dig us out of the hole. And when you have Aubameyang and Ozil sitting in the front row of the lower tier with chalk on their boots, that they can't win you the game from out there. They just can't. And if you really want someone with chalk on their boots, we paid £72 million for a winger in the summer. Play him. Put him on the wing. Don't put Ozil and Aubameyang. Like I've said, like on the last few pods, I think you can get away with like having, you know, trying to squeeze one player into an attack, perhaps who isn't going to play in his optimal position. I think you can get away with that. You can't have two, and you can't have two like stuck out on the wing, and I know he scored. I know he's beginning to get a little bit of, I don't want to say flack now, but there's a little bit of scrutiny coming on Lacazette because he's not playing well. Basically, that's just the headline. I don't think he's really played well this season. But then again, he's far from alone there. And so we're literally marginalising our two most gifted, creative players, and then playing a guy who's really off form through the centre, and we're leaving like our very talented, if slightly misfiring at this point, winger on the bench. And I just think at this moment in time, if you're going to play Ozil, play him at number 10. If you're going to play Aubameyang, play him through the middle. We've got Pepe who can play on the wing. Like, let's look after the guys who can dig you out of the hole. And I know you responded to my tweet on this, at half time. It's like, it's amazing to me that how much effort we put into making sure that bang average players like Xhaka and Kolasinac feel comfortable and feel wanted. And, we set the team up in a way that, that we try and make them feel all warm and fuzzy. And then we just mistreat our actual talent. And at this stage, like in the long term, just playing Ozil at number 10, Aubameyang through the middle, like in the long term, that's going to be flawed. That's going to give you structural issues. But we are so far away from worrying about slightly flawed structures at the moment. We need a win. And we need and look, we can't defend. We don't have the players to do it. He tried to put Mustafi in the last game. He took him out. He's put Socrates in. He doesn't have the options to really strengthen that defence up. He can do things in front of it a bit better, but he can't. That's not where the strength in the team is. He can't do anything about that really. What he can do something about is making those super talented attackers feel good, feel comfortable. And at this point in time, we're not going to go out and smash anyone 5-0. If we're going to, our next win is going to be by 1 goal, and it's probably going to be a bit lucky. So
and it's probably going to be in 2022.
Yeah. So let's look after the guys who can take care of those margins and just get us that win.
There's a weird phenomenon at big clubs among the fan base that I have observed, and it frustrates me, and that's partly because I'm a massive fanny, but there is the tendency to love and protect and hold to our bosom the likable, hardworking players. at the expense of the very talented players who maybe are a little more mercurial and slightly flawed. I cannot tell you how many arguments I got into over Francis Coughlin. People loved Francis Coughlin. I mean, look at him diving into that tackle, Francis Coughlin. And in the same breath, I was in arguments with those people over Alexis Sanchez who were like, he gives the ball away too much. Let me tell you something. Big clubs need Alexis Sanchez's more than they need Francis Coughlin's. Francis Coughlin was not a good footballer. Okay? Francis Coughlin could do a couple of things and helped us at a time where we needed that. Alexis Sanchez is the kind of footballer that can win a team a title. It's just that simple. And we're doing it again. Kolasinac wasn't that bad. And, granted, Xhaka really, he gets on the ball and he can distribute. And, meanwhile, we're like, Aubameyang, whatever. Pepe, he's kind of a waste. Here's the reality. Sometimes you have to make hard choices. You bench Lacazette. You play Aubameyang through the middle. You play the 72 million pound striker or winger. You pay Tierney, who you bought in the summer to be a solution at a position that you thought was a problem. I mean, if you're Liverpool and you're going for the title and Naby Keita can't get in your team, then so be it. Naby Keita again can't get in your team because you're on pace for 100 points without him. But if you're Arsenal and you can't win a fucking game and the club bought you Tierney and Pepe, you know what you should do? Play Tierney and Pepe. Because if they fail and you fail as a result of it, then it points the finger back at Raul and Edu and the whole group and says the tools you gave us didn't work. But not using them and instead going for the players who didn't do it for you the season before is unconscionable. It doesn't make any sense. It's not a coherent strategy. And that comes from someone who knows about being incoherent. So, Clive, I mean, look, the way I see this is we have flaws in the squad that we are exacerbating by failing to choose the players who were brought in to fix the flaws in the squad and just play them in their natural positions. But I do want to get to this issue of whether the squad is bad or not. Let's say there were 20 teams in the Premier League, and there are, and they're exactly the same as they are right now, Clive, okay? Every single squad is the exact squad it is right now. And every single team was managed by the exact same head coach, okay? Same head coach, every single team. So there is absolutely no difference in coaching. Pep is coaching every one of them, or Klopp is, or Sam Allardyce. I don't care who, but 20 teams, same coach. Where do Arsenal finish with this squad if every single team in the league is coached by the same team? Same coach.
I'm not too sure. I think we should be a top six side, but I think we're no longer a top six side.
Do you think clear. That all things being equal, this squad would not finish in the top six if every single team that there are six better squads than ours?
Yeah, I think we're missing something. I think we don't realise that the middle of the run teams like Palace and Wolves, obviously Leicester have shot up straight away. The good coaching at Sheffield United. These teams are improving and they understand what they're trying to do. They are building fit, hard-working, athletic squads that are well coached, that play to a plan mostly off the ball. They can survive big moments and they can chin you. They can take points from you. And apart from Liverpool, everyone is suffering. Right? So I do think we massively overrate the talent of our squad because talent is one thing, but it's how you apply that talent, I'm afraid, is what really, really counts. And that's where the gap has been closed. There are, I hear you talking about the players. I sort of just smile to myself because I don't think people really understand what good players need to have to be good players. We can all, when we close our eyes and think about our team performances, we all see their best moments. But the game is not about your best moments. The game is about hard work to allow yourself to show your best moments. And that's what we haven't got at the moment. We have players who are hiding, standing next to people, not owning the ball, marking themselves. They're basically scared to play. They're not scared to walk in and get the contracts, but they're scared to show up in front of their own fans and really put themselves into situations where they could get into trouble. The whole atmosphere and environment is not allowing the players to flourish. I'm not going to call the players weak because I think it's a difficult thing. They're young men, and I think it's a difficult thing when you when you start thinking fearfully, you're trapped in your game, you're trapped in your 6 out of 10 game. And other teams smell the fear. They smell the fear on the terraces. I just could not get over the fear I felt last night watching that game. I was genuinely fearful, not just worried about your team losing. I was genuinely fearful for for where we were. I'm trying not to overreact, but I do feel if I was to take you through every one of the players, and I'll tell you now, they're not as good as we think they are. They're really not. They're not. I'll give you a good example. Every one of us would have veteran in our teams.
I mean, when he's back to form, I don't know that he's back yet.
When he's back, he's not back yet. So let me caveat that. Thank you, Elliot, for caveating that. But can't we just see that the kid is at 3/4 pace? He's lost weight. He's lost power. He hasn't got the explosion. He's not there. So he's a name on the team sheet, but he's not ready. People are running through him. They're pushing him. They're moving him. He's right there in front of you. Of course, he's a great guy and probably one of our best players, best persons. Should be maybe the captain, represents the club more than anybody else. And so we all want him back. But it's indicative of where we are. Have we just noticed that potentially we are weaker than we were last year, player-wise, with the players going out and the players that have come in, and where they are health-wise, adaptation-wise? They're not there. Experience-wise, we are weaker. And if you look at the squad this year, there may be 2 players, just 2, that have improved. And that's Aubameyang and the goalkeeper. So we are exactly where we should be.
I don't disagree. It's just that I think a lot of that is coaching. I mean, I don't think we understand.
Please, I have to jump in.
Yeah.
I have to jump in. I don't like when I hear that, because one bit I did miss. The modern game is all about intensity and movement and your ability to apply yourself. We have been left with a bunch of players which lack intensity, lack the ability to win duels, to win races. It is obvious and clear. And because they lack confidence in themselves, they are dropping away. They're disconnecting as groups. Some of that can be coached. Some of that can't be coached. It just can't be coached. It's just not in the group.
Look, I don't disagree.
We need to up that side of things and make that a priority to allow the talent to shine.
Clive, I don't disagree, but what I would say is, like, I'm not saying they can be coached to win a title. I'm saying they can clearly be coached to be better than this. And I think there's a few issues. First of all, you just don't know the extent to which they've given up. And if they've given up, that obviously reflects poorly on them, but it can be down to the situation behind the scenes. I mean, I think Aubameyang is an A+ center forward and a C- winger, right? I mean, that's an example of an area where we make our team worse, and maybe we're not getting as much from him in terms of commitment, but also in terms of deployment. I think that there are other things we can be doing. Look, I saw Chelsea finish 12th and then win the league the next season. Now, I realize they made changes to their squad, but they didn't finish 12th because they had the 12th best team. They finished 12th because they quit on Jose Mourinho. I've seen Conte win a title with Leicester and then win a title at Chelsea and win a World Cup and not, or has he won a title at Chelsea? I can't remember. Anyway, but then,
yeah, he did.
Yeah, thank you. But then not be particularly good for Sarri because Sarri used him in a different way. And it's not because Conte isn't brilliant. It's because Conte has to be, players are tools, and the tools have to be, refined and trained and then used in the way that they can be most effective. I saw Leicester win a title with a squad that had deep flaws. But if there's one thing that they got right, they understood that they could counterattack. They understood that they had a guy that could play like 2 guys in midfield in front of a very poor central defensive unit, that they had the ability to, with Mahrez, beat a man off the dribble and create opportunities to play in Vardy behind. And they did that brilliantly. And I'm not saying we should be winning a title. I'm not saying we should be close. I'm saying that what's happening right now is the combination of what I think was a very poor performance by Unai Emery and now a guy who's just in over his head trying to clean up a disaster that is going to be hard for the most experienced coach to clean up. And that I just don't think it's being helped necessarily by the deployment of players. But I'm not going to suggest for a second that playing Aubameyang through the middle and Pepe on the right and Tierney at fullback means we'll start, we'll rocket up the table. I just think these are common sense solutions. I think, Tim, we obviously have to look at how resources have been deployed. And there's an interesting chat going on in Discord, and DTDC Gunnar in there was making, the interesting point that everything changed a few years ago when all of this money flooded into the Premier League with the television contracts, right? And that this TV money meant that some of the smaller clubs woke up and said, hey, you know what? These big clubs spend like drunks on Black Friday. And they're not careful. They waste their resources. They maybe don't have the best coaches. They have big name coaches. And that if we are careful, if we incorporate analytics, if we do better with our scouting, if we find value, if we hire coaches who are more tactically astute, there are gaps that we can close, right? There are opportunities for us to seize upon to close the gaps by using our resources more efficiently than they do. And I'm wondering, on the recent Arscast, I think Arsblog did a great job sort of rattling through some of the purchases we've made. Putting aside the amount of resources that have been made available to us, do you think one of the biggest issues has just been that we have failed to leverage our resources and the opportunities presented to us through superior, tactical innovations, analytics innovations, and scouting to just use our resources intelligently? Have we just basically squandered our economic advantage?
Yeah, I think so, because if you look at, we pretty much spent all of our money in the summer, right? I know we clawed some of it back, but even then, that was just because we'd massively overspent to get Pepe, and then we had to make a couple of quick sales. Yes, I think we have. I'm not necessarily saying we have in perpetuity, but at this moment in time, yeah, because I'm not as familiar with the financials at this point, and not least because Arsenal have no obligation to kind of publish them anymore.
God bless Swiss Ramble for what he does, for what he's able to do.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. But what or who, what are we going to be able to do in January, for example? I'd imagine not a lot.
Do you think Dennis Suarez is available? Go back in.
Yeah, and because I was I was writing earlier this week about the attack and how we've got loads of talent in attack, but it just doesn't fit together. I can't see a way of getting our four most talented attackers into the same team really in a satisfactory way. In fact, getting even three of them in, I think, makes things a bit unbalanced. And I was kind of saying so, but three of them, their contracts are up in 18 months, so that they'll naturally turn over quite quickly anyway. But then you think, well, another year in the Europa League, or maybe not even in the Europa League at all. What are we going to have to replace them financially? And that it was quite clear that this summer just gone was we were throwing our shirts on the poker table. It was watches in, car keys in, mortgage deeds in. This is the last time we can do this, because this is 3 years in the Europa League, and we're starting to feel the pinch. And at this stage, you look at this whole squad needs a rebuild. Really, we built a must-win now squad that's gotten worse, and it all needs blowing up and starting again. And what, how are we going to do that? What are we going to do that with? It would probably be quite nice about now to have, I don't know, a world-renowned scout, perhaps, who has a really, really good history of finding cheap players from nowhere. That would be quite nice about now. So yeah, I totally think we have, and a lot of it, and I listened to the Arscast today, and actually I found it so striking, because I don't think I've thought about it before. When you rattle off I lost 15 signings, and only really 2 or 3 of them have been an unqualified success, and that's really alarming. And so much of it, I think, just goes back to that summer of 2015. When we only bought Petr Cech, and then after that we were chasing our tails, because it wasn't just that in that summer we failed to build on, because in 2014-15, right, we'd got Ozil and Sanchez in the team. We'd just finished third. We won a second consecutive FA Cup. We were in a really good position that summer. With there were some building blocks there. You thought, right, okay, Arsenal are maybe back, and then. But some of that squad just needed a little bit more gentle kind of, I'm not necessarily saying, don't get me wrong, it would have been nice to make another blockbuster signing, but even in lieu of that, just a little bit more gentle rotation, just a couple of tweaks, just 1 or 2 players in, 1 or 2 players out, keep things ticking over. And they did nothing, and they froze. And because of that, the next summer they had to do loads of work. They had to panic buy Mustafi. I don't think Xhaka was a panic buy. They got that one done pretty quickly. I think that's a player they wanted. But, like scrabbling around for Mustafi and spending 35 million and scrabbling around for Lucas Perez and spending 17 million on him. And from there, it's just kind of gone into free fall because we consistently had to chase our tails, and then we had to pay 50 million for Lacazette because we wanted another striker, and we didn't bite the bullet on Lacazette a year or two earlier when we probably could have got him for cheaper. And it's just like the number one lesson we're learning, like we're possibly learning, and look, the jury's still out really on like the likes of Raul Sanllehi and Edu. I don't think it's not quite fair at this moment in time to say, well, they're clearly useless. Unfortunately, I think that they're on that road, but they're not all the way down it. But the lessons here are stop keeping underperforming managers on to do more damage. Act more quickly, act more decisively. But yeah, like recruitment has just been really, really bad. Like a lot of money wasted, and it almost makes you pine for the days when we had no money, and we almost just allowed Wenger, I guess, to be a coach at that point and just try and coach some youngsters, which actually I think in a weird way kind of suits him, or suited him rather, and like because basically ever since Arsenal have been freed a little bit financially, like the wealthier Arsenal have become, really the stupider they've become, I guess.
Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about, is how these other clubs close the gap. I mean, you could never be a mid-table club and let a £50 million asset leave for free. We let two of them leave for free and committed to another one to the tune of $350,000 a week going into his 31-year-old season. I mean, these are the kinds of moves that allow smaller clubs to close the gap on you. When Ramsey leaves for free and Alexis leaves essentially for free in a swap for a player you don't need, and Ozil is committed to for a wage busting or a salary bill busting wage, those are moves that allow other clubs to close the gap. While Leicester go out and they get Ndidi and they get Tielemans and they spend efficiently and they bring in a tactically secure manager, and suddenly what do they need? They need clubs like United and Arsenal to be dumb. And guess what? Clubs like United and Arsenal were more than happy to oblige. Go ahead.
It kind of reminds me of just as a bit of an analogy, basically when you have no money, right? Like you in real life have like no money.
Thanks for reminding me.
And if you're earning like you're not earning well, for example, and money's tight. When money's tight, it's almost like having a tax, right? Because you don't have the money to like fix things. So if you're struggling for money and your car's struggling, you can't afford to go and get it fixed until it's completely broken. And you can't afford to buy, and you've got to have a car because you can't afford to buy a house near the station or get a house near the station. So you need a car, and you can't afford to fix things until they're profoundly broken, and that costs more money. And you can't afford to buy things in bulk, so you actually end up spending more money. And that kind of reminds me a little bit of what Arsenal have done, but in the inverse, as they've gotten richer, because they've allowed themselves to get into stupid situations. They keep panicking. And so they keep going into transfer windows and going, fuck, we've got to spend 35 million on Mustafi now. And oh shit, we've got to pull the trigger on this. We've got to do this. And, it becomes a very slippery slope when you start doing that, rather than just building sensibly and building from a position of strength. Arsenal have allowed themselves to go into a position of weakness. And when you try and buy your way out of trouble, you get desperate and you make stupid decisions, and you start paying money for things that you don't need to pay money for, and you start losing money on things that you don't need to lose, and it's just like this snowball effect has happened. Yeah,
I agree. And I think of it this way in some respects, like it is simply, look, if you spend £72 million on a winger and you don't want to use him, something has gone profoundly wrong. Now, I'm not saying that the player could just suck, but he hasn't played enough to decide he sucks. And when he's played, he certainly hasn't sucked. Like, for a club to be so disjointed that a club that has finite resources would spend £72 million pounds on a coming into prime winger when winger was clearly an area of need and he is not being used, that is a fractured and broken structure to club. And Clive, to your point about coaching, like, look, I get you. I'm not saying these players are world beaters, but it's not talent that's causing them to just run to the touchline and vacate the center. That can be coached out of them. So yeah, go ahead. I know you have a lot to add on this, so go ahead.
Well, you're right. Things can be coached. Positionally, you can be coached. Your coaching emphasis can be much more attacking, can be more one touch. We can speed up the movement of the ball. We can do all those things. There are certain things we can't do with the players that we have. Some of them lack quality. Some of them do things under pressure, which is very, very poor. And some of them lack athleticism. Some of them lack the ability to repeat sprint. It's just there right in front of your eyes. You don't need to be an analyst to work it out. The fear we all watch the games in is telling us exactly where our players are and what they can and can't do. But what you guys have been talking about really is just the environment. Recruitment has been a shocking issue. So the same players that we're now saying it was a recruitment issue, we're now saying they can be coached. Well, they can be coached, but it's only to a point. Let's be honest. The players are not as good as we think they are. And when you have a multiple set of bad decisions that involve in players and players' contracts and recruitment, what that says about your environment is this is an environment where we can be rumbled by opportunists right from the top, right? So we had a split ownership, opportunity for those ownership to make money. One basically wins it. He's doubled his money. Good luck with him. It's an opportunity. It's a business opportunity. We had a set of execs in place in Ivan Gazidis, $2.5 million a year. He took his money. Opportunity. Wenger made himself the single point of failure by doing 5 jobs. He took the opportunity to develop a club in his own model. There was weakness. There's a void there. There's an opportunity. And then when the players see that all happening and they see players walking out for free, how do you think they're going to behave? There's an opportunity for them to walk out for free. There's an opportunity for them to hold a club to ransom. So all that says is that environment is not optimal. And when we decide to then act in response, a panic reaction, to the fact that we let Alexis get into a bad situation, we let Ramsey get into a bad situation because we weren't ruthless enough with both of them, we then have to go and do something very un-Arsenal-like by giving Ozil that size of contract. And the moment you give him that size of contract, you are now telling everybody else what is okay. It is okay at Arsenal not to win. It is okay at Arsenal not to always train well and not always play well. It is okay at Arsenal not to always work hard because the key people at the club are allowed to do it. And what really struck me in the game last night, what was allowable? We saw a rant at the end. We saw a rant during the games from Aubameyang. And this tells me the environment absolutely lacks discipline, authority, leadership, accountability. They are allowed to, they feel comfortable doing these things. What Xhaka did, he felt comfortable doing it, right? The players' actions and the club's actions all lead to a weakness of environment. So when you see these things, think about why they're doing it. We only do things we can get away with. We all do it. Right? We don't do anything more than we can get away with because we know we're going to pay a price. The things that are happening, that price is being paid. That price is being paid by a fractured squad, fractured departments on the pitch. And obviously we analyse football games, so we think about how we can make that better, move people around. This is bigger than moving deck chairs on a Titanic, mate. This is way bigger. This is environmental, what Arsenal now are. You come to Arsenal, opportunity to live in Hampstead and make money as you're passing through. You don't come to Arsenal to win the league any longer, right? You don't have to win. We were the first one to call the top 4 trophy. Top 4 is a trophy right now, by the way. Do you see what I mean? So we were the first ones to take our ambitions down while everybody else looked at what we did infrastructure-wise, looked at our ground, looked at our training ground, and are now copying it. The next one are Leicester. They talk about adding capacity to their stadium and a new training ground around the corner. Ownership fully aligned, coaching team locked down for the next 5-6 years. They're doing what we did years ago. But we've been doing a lap of honour since, making big mistakes because we've got money in our pockets and we've been stupid with it. And people have closed the gap on us and they know we're vulnerable. And now that the fruits of that is there for everyone to see. And I'm telling you, a lot of people are very, very scared about where the bottom of this actually is.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're running out of titles because like 3 of the last 4 titles for our podcast were The Doomsday Scenario, Gaslight Nation, and Where's the Bottom? I mean, like, what the fuck are we going to call these things now? But Clive, let me stay with you for a second about that. I mean, you know, you look at Liverpool, and Liverpool bought Van Dijk for an absolute fortune as the final piece to a title-winning team or, you know, a title-challenging team. We bought Pepe for an absolute fortune for what seemed to be a placate the fans and keep everybody happy kind of move. Is the problem at Arsenal in part that that we have 2 eyes on commercial success and fan placation and nobody who really understands that what drives the commerce engine and drives the fan commitment is competitiveness on the pitch. And that for too long, things like getting the Adidas deal or getting the Emirates Stadium or, you know, buying a star like Ozil or re-signing him was about getting shirt sponsorships and commercial deals. And that actually the real issue is we've had executives whose focus has been too much on the commercial side and that the competitive side hasn't been appreciated enough and tended to enough as the engine that drives all of this commerce.
Absolutely agree. We've got all these people around in the background of the club, but they're not driving us hard enough commercially, which means...
I mean, we've got Visit Rwanda on our sleeve. How's that making us more competitive? I get it. It's money, but I'm saying like you know, we've got guys who know how to find a sleeve sponsorship, but don't know how to find, you know, a diamond in the rough center back, you know? Yeah.
So, you know, it's a good point. So basically, we've got a very, very, very rich owner. Right? So they talk about having a plan. Well, if you have a plan, your job as the owner is to work on ways where you can improve revenue streams, right? So you can deliver on that plan. So it's really, really clear. We have no commercial plan. We have no football plan. We don't. And I take Tim's point. I think we have to wait till January and the summer to really, really judge Raul and Edu. Let's give them a little bit of a chance. But, you know, I tell you now, when I start to think about this, when Liverpool bought Oxlade-Chamberlain, everyone sort of laughed and said, you know, well, what, they're getting a player that's not done anything, blah, blah, blah. They just put the money down, 40 mil, bang. You know why? They had a plan. Their plan was to have intense, hard-running midfielders. The moment they bought him, I knew exactly where he was going to play. He left a club where he was playing left wing back, right wing, right in the midfield, up right wing in the 3, right in the 4. We moved him all around centre midfield, and then we judged him on it. He went at Liverpool, and come on, you guys know your football. We knew exactly where he was going to play. Right side, when midfield 3. Done. They had a plan. When Zaha go to Chelsea in January, we know where he's going to play. We know what he's going to do. They have these inside wingers. They're going to put him in there. And he's going to rotate William and Pulisic. A plan. Done. And when we buy players, we don't have a plan for them. The structure's not solid. We don't have a career path for them. There is no succession planning for them. We just have a group of players that we judge on their talent, but we don't drive an environment that says, this is what you do when you come here. And so what people do, well, you know what, I'll sign because I'll get paid. And then we have to keep finding money. The money's running out. The revenue streams are getting less and less and less. And we are sort of looking towards the board and looking towards the ownership and hoping they're going to accelerate this plan because we don't like how we're feeling. And we're really concerned about the next steps because none of our assets are growing. The ones that people want are the ones that are holding us up. And so we've got a rebuild to undertake. And you know what, Tim had a great point about Sven. That was a guy that potentially could have got us back to the lost millions. We've now lost that. And so we're going to be paying out multiple millions in agents' fees, right? And so we're going to be at the behest to the opportunists. The opportunities are looking at us and they can't wait to get in there. The Kia's getting in there. Mendes will get in there and they're going to rinse us of our money. They really are, because there's a void and there's a lack of a plan. And I'm extremely, extremely worried about it.
Yeah, and I mean, that certainly points a couple fingers at Raul. Then let's do this. Let's point a couple fingers at some of the sexiest thong underwear you've ever seen by talking about the enclosed, because obviously, if you want it to be a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Kwanzaa, and a Happy New Year, the way to do that is to clothe your partner in the sexiest lingerie on the planet. We're going to tell you about that. We're going to come back and talk relegation after this. All right, it's time to tell you about our friends at The Enclosed. That's right, Enclosed Lingerie is back, and we are thrilled to have them back for the holiday season because it's just in time for you to get something for your partner. Forget the flowers and the sweaters or something like that, especially a gift certificate. Now you can get them high-end luxury lingerie from The Enclosed. You don't have to wander through a mall awkwardly. You don't have to worry about the fit or the quality because it's always going to be backed by a perfect fit guarantee. And we can get $35 off your multi-month purchase just by using Arsenal at checkout. Just go to enclosed.gifts. That's easy enough. Enclosed.gifts. Be a holiday hero. Get her what she wants. It's something that's great for the relationship. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be high-end and fit perfectly every time. And then every month, you can look forward to that thing that is going to bring you closer together with that special person. So, enclosed.gifts is the site. Arsenal is the checkout code. Go there now to save $35 off any monthly, multi-month purchase. Enclosed.gifts. Do it now. Okay, we're back. And now, Tim, I think we should talk about the obvious elephant in the room, and that is relegation. So I don't know how to address this because on the one hand, it feels completely hysterical and hyperbolic, which obviously leans right into my branding. But like, we just lost at home to Brighton. We failed to beat Southampton. We failed to beat Watford. We failed to beat Norwich. I mean, you look at what's coming up, and, you know, of our next 5 games, I think 3 of them are City, Chelsea, and United. Or of our next 6 or whatever it is, we have a relegation 6-pointer at Everton. We just went through Project 36. In fact, we have 1 game left at West Ham. That will complete the run of 12 games that we identified on this pod as a run of 12 very winnable games. I am on record. I have a tweet out. Someone asked me what would be a good return. I said about 28 points. Someone said, I think 24 or something. And I said, I think that would probably be disastrous. We are currently sitting on, I think, 12 points from 11 games. I'm not kidding. So is there any remote possibility that relegation is in the frame here?
No, I don't think so at the moment. I think there's too much football to play. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm at this stage, like, what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 games? Yeah, it could get uglier. However, I think we're talking more than half a season, and even having played this badly, we're still 5 points over the top, 5 points away from the relegation zone, and like, honestly, yeah, I maybe this is famous last words. I really don't see us getting worse than this. I'm not saying I see us getting a lot better, a lot more quickly, but no, I just I think even in current form, there are still 3 teams worse, and I don't think this current form will last forever. We will dig our way out of this. I'm not saying we're going to sweep all before us and be brilliant, and honestly, I think at this stage we'll finish, I don't know, 9th, something like that. I think it'll be a bit of a mid-table finish, but no. If you come back to me in March or April, but I mean, even then, if in April we're 5 points above the relegation zone, you know, we're kind of...
Well, then we're going down because I'm pretty sure we play Spurs and United in 2 of our last 3 games or something. Yeah,
in the conversation, but still, do you know what I mean? For me, we would have to be in the relegation zone right now for that to be, or a bit closer to it for that to be serious.
Well, we're 5 points clear. The bottom team is Watford, cut totally adrift essentially. We drew them.
Yeah.
The second team, cut fairly adrift, is Norwich. We drew them. The next team is Everton, and we have to go there soon. Everton are not a team you expect to go down. The team above them is Southampton. Remind me what we just did to them. Failed to win.
Yeah.
Aston Villa were beating us at the Emirates before we staged an improbable comeback. Then it's West Ham. We travel to them next. Then it's Bournemouth. We travel to them shortly. And then it's Brighton, who just beat us. And then it's Burnley and Newcastle, who we beat both. I mean, the irony is when you look at the teams below us, every single one of them, roughly, has beaten us or drawn us, or we go to their place soon. So, I mean, and again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but like at some point, if losing at home to Brighton is a reality, and failing to beat Norwich, and failing to beat Watford, and failing to beat Southampton are all things that just happen, I would say to you, where's our next win coming from? And you certainly think we will lose to United, Chelsea, and City on current form. So then
I'm not so sure about United so much.
Well, they could be just like, as bad, yeah. Well, they beat Spurs, just to be fair.
Obviously, right? If we play to this level for the next, like, what's left now, 20 odd games, then yeah, we're in trouble. But I just don't believe we will at all.
Well, this goes back to
slowly get better, and yeah.
Well, and this goes back to my point to some extent, then, Tim, about coaching making a difference. There's just no rational possibility that the squad is as bad as it is playing. I will say this: I think that the center backs could be the worst center backs in the entire division. I don't think we have a center back that could keep a team in the bottom up. But I think we have plenty of attacking talent that an intelligent setup could fix this. So, Clive, I want to get your quick take on relegation and then really just sort of drill into the match just a little bit, a couple of details from the match. I mean, do you think relegation, and can I kind of give you something sort of scary here, right? So if you look at like understats, expected goal stuff, and I know people don't love expected goals, but we're actually outperforming our expected goals for and our expected goals allowed. According to Understat, we actually have like roughly more points than we should, or at least we're doing a little better than we should. So like, we're not even in one of these false positions. Like the irony is, you know, if you look at United, for example, Understat thinks United should have 7 more points than they do. Okay. Because their defense has been a lot better than their goals allowed. But like, we're in the position that our play dictates. So we're not even like underperforming. This is based on how we've been playing where we should be. So with that, I yield the floor to you. I mean, do you think that the discussion of relegation is a silly thing or is a plausibility?
I don't think we're going to be relegated, but I do think we're going to be in the lower league positions quite quickly. And the reason why what's been really, you know, the last couple of years, what we've really done is not play very well, but we've scored lots of goals.
Can I give you a stat just real quick, just to blow your mind? Just really, really quickly from Lewis Ambrose. I think it's Lewis Ambrose who did it. Maybe Rihanna Wall, actually. We have scored 12 open play goals.
Well, that's where I was going to go somewhere similar to that, actually. But that's even better. And, you know, we scored 21 goals in 15 games. So we've all sat here, you know, and we've said, let's lean into our talent. Let's lean into our forwards. Right? We've said it, all of us have said it in various guises. They're not doing it. So what's happening is everything else has been exposed because we stopped scoring. Last year we would score at the right times. We would edge games. I know the stats were saying that we shouldn't have been edging those games, but we managed to. This is part of the correction. Our forwards have lost a bit of edge. They are now losing a bit of confidence because the pressure is now on their shoulders. I always go back to Baku, and I watched Aubameyang and I watched Lacazette.
It's a hard place to get back to be fair.
Yeah, and you learn about people in the darkest moments, and I felt they crumbled under the pressure. They had the pressure of trying to score the goals to get Arsenal into the Champions League. I felt they crumbled, and I feel them crumbling a bit now, and we're relying on them because they are the people that are going to take us out of this crap. You know what I mean? Mm. Our defenders are not going to do it. Our midfielders, unless we coach that can be coached up to a point. But because our defenders are what they are, we can't close the distances like we used to. But we can get to somewhere where we can be a bit more dominant in our average position and what we do on the ball, our shape and distances. That can be coached. But we're relying on our forwards. And I'm worried about them. We've got one kid. I mean, there was a worrying thing in the game last night. Pepe was warming up at half time. I don't know if you saw it, Tim, but they were saying on the TV that basically he had the most lackadaisical warm-up, like he didn't even care to come on in the second half. And he came on with his shin pad tape and he wasn't even ready to come on. And he looked like somebody, I'm thinking, mate, this is really important. He then came out and played pretty well for 25 minutes. That I didn't like. Lacazette's off form. people are now starting to reach and panic and talk about Aubameyang, get him down the middle, and watching him running down the touchline, killing himself, trying to keep us in the game, is just a criminal waste of energy. And so the pressure's starting to hit, and people are starting to react to it in different ways. Players are starting to have a little bite at each other. This is not something that Arsenal people are used to. So if we do have a few more bad results, we're going to look at that table and we're not going to like what we see. And every single talk show, every single bit of media will be shining a light on us, and that's going to increase more pressure in our environment. And if there's one thing we can all say, we're not really great at delivering under pressure, right? So I am worried about the turmoil we're going to go through. I'm not saying we're going to go down, but we are going to go through it. The bottom has not been reached yet. Well, we're going to go through it.
Let me add to that by saying, look, we're probably going to lose to City, United, and Chelsea. I mean, and if you're saying, oh, don't be so negative, I mean, you tell me. We just failed to beat Norwich, Southampton, and we lost at home to Brighton. But just for a second, here's my point. If this happens, and Freddie's still trying to get his hands around this thing, and New Year's rolls around, the January transfer window at Arsenal is going to look like an episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Because Aubameyangs and Lacazette's, those guys aren't going to want to wait till the summer. They're going to want to go now. And their big money agents who seem to run this club are probably going to have the ear of Raul and maybe say, look, I can get a little sweetener for you if you let him go now. And so there's going to be some real hard decisions, because if Aubameyang goes in January, I mean, where is the bottom? It's a question we've asked, and I certainly wonder. I don't think we're getting relegated. But look, Tim, Freddie Ljungberg had a hot second as an assistant coach at Wolfsburg. He had one season as the U23 coach at Arsenal, and now he's a head coach of Arsenal. I don't care what you think of Freddie Ljungberg. Wonderful, wonderful legend for the club. He is not ready. He's not. It's not his fault, but he's not. And the situation is dire. I don't think we can just play the he can have it till the end of the season while we sort it out game, because I do think that the damage that can be done. We stuck with Unai too long, and he sacked the city. He really did. I mean, he wrecked the club, but now he has left it in a situation where Freddie can't be the steady hand till the end of the season, in my opinion. I'm curious to get your take on how quickly the club has to bring someone in, and if you would even potentially take an interim kind of appointment to then allow them to do a full search for the summer to get the full-time guy in.
So I'm not ready to press the panic button on Ljungberg yet. I think unless it gets to a stage where we actually are fighting relegation, I'm happy to wait. I accept what you're saying. He's probably not ready.
He has literally no experience, essentially.
Yeah, but if it's vitally important that they get the next appointment right, and that's a position that Arsenal have put themselves in, because I don't think that was the case like immediately post Wenger. I really think the case was go through as many managers as we need to, but fail fast, learn quickly.
Yes,
they haven't done that. They haven't failed fast and learned quickly. They failed very, very slowly and haven't learned at all.
But they failed a lot, for what that's worth.
Yeah,
but to be fair, Tim,
so they've.
If we were doing this to a young player, if this was an academy kid we were throwing in at the deep end every game, in our central defense, we'd be saying, how can you do this to this kid? Isn't it sort of similar to do this to Freddie, to have him helm a serious crisis at the start of his career?
Maybe, but I also think expectation will be quite low at the moment, and actually. Look, if he's going to be a top coach at any point, and we don't know that, and I'm not saying he will, but if he's going to be a top coach at any point, I think this will be valuable experience for him.
Okay, that's fair.
This will only be crushing for him if he's not very good.
Do you feel the same way though about like a Gary Neville's experience in Spain or Thierry's experience in France, or I do worry that you can kill managerial careers the same way you can kill kids who get thrown into the deep end.
Yeah, but I think you only kill the kids who probably aren't going to make it anyway.
That's a good point. Yep.
To be honest, and I do think that about those respective managerial careers. The thing is, Arsenal they've got to take a breath, I think, because we've just been talking about how they've just been in like fight or flight crisis mode and making panic decisions, and at some point it has to stop. That has to stop. They have to take a breath, and they have to stop just panicking and just swiping at things and signing checks and panicking. That has to stop, and this is the time to stop it, because basically the league season is now a write-off. And what I would say is that the problem that they've got, first of all, they really, really should have done their due diligence in the summer. I thought Emery should have gone in the summer, but I understand why the club didn't take that decision. I do understand it. But what they absolutely should have done was start making plans just in case. And don't get me wrong, I didn't think it was going to go this wrong for Emery. I thought we were just going to get more of the same. I didn't think it would slide like this. I thought it'd just be it'd be quite average. I didn't think we'd go into disaster mode, but they absolutely should have been making plans at that point, and they clearly weren't. And, they did things like they bought players that, I'm not really sure Emery wanted. Stuff like Freddie going into the coaching setup and stuff like that. They made some tweaks. So they felt Unai Emery needed something, that he needed some help. And that is an admission that they don't think he was doing the job very well. Now, that doesn't mean they absolutely must sack him at that point, but they absolutely must consider that sacking him might be in the post and start lining things up. And what is increasingly clear is that they just didn't. And what they're finding now is the manager market is shit. It is absolute shit. And this is a reality we have to wake up to. Even the massive clubs aren't finding managers at the moment. Spurs had to jump into bed with Mourinho. Bayern can't get anyone. If Bayern Munich can't get a good manager, then what hope have Arsenal got, really? It's mad out there. It's very bad. But I think there are quite good appointments they can probably make, but there are disasters out there. There are some banana skins in that managerial market, and like Clive was saying with the agent thing, there are some agents that have managers as well, and there are some bad managers out there who are thinking, nice, I could walk into this, do a shit job and get a nice payoff here. Arsenal are vulnerable.
I'm sending my resume as we speak.
Arsenal are very vulnerable for vultures at the moment, and that goes for the managerial market. I mean, look what Jose Mourinho has done to Spurs. He's got a contract till 2023 on enormous money. Like, he hasn't extorted them, but he's done something quite close to it because they're desperate, and we're even more desperate than they are. So Arsenal, they're in a bad position in that I don't think they can make an amazing appointment unless they just take a gamble that happens to pay off. They can make a really bad one. I tweeted last night that I thought what would happen is Freddie would keep it to the end of the season and Brendan Rodgers would probably take it in the summer. I know he's signed a new contract today. That makes me even more convinced it's going to happen, that it might happen, because that tells you that Rodgers was interested, or at the very least he leveraged the position, right? You don't hand out new contracts to people you've had for 9 months unless you're shitting your pants about losing them and that they're not reassuring you that they're going to stay. You hand out new contracts because you're looking to tie someone down. And so I still think it could happen. Although him having a new contract means it could be very, very expensive, and so it might not happen. But anyway, I think Arsenal are in an exceptionally vulnerable position manager-wise, and I think they've got to be very, very careful, because one more bad appointment could be really, really bad news.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. And look, the only thing I would say, Unai Emery was bad last season because he is bad and should feel bad. Our run-in was brutally bad. And despite the terrible form and honestly not very good squad made worse by the absence of Ramsey, we basically sashayed into the final of the Europa League. And they do give a Champions League place for Europa League winners. It's astonishing, I know, but they do. Now look, this year Inter might be in it and Borussia Dortmund might be in it. And, You know, it can always be difficult when those teams parachute in. But given that even a bad Arsenal was able to get to the final one year and really should have beaten Atletico Madrid to get to the final the year before, and given that there's a Champions League place on offer, I just feel that we have to have an eye on it. Because look, what can you imagine if we somehow shithouse our way to having Champions League next season? I don't know if we can play in it from the championship, but that's another story. Like, it would make all the difference in the world to the club. And so if there's an interim guy, I mean, I know it would cost a fucking fortune, but I would bite your arm off for Rafa Benitez for the rest of the season, just to tighten things up, steady the ship, maybe try to win us a Europa League, and you know, whatever, part with him at the end of the season and just pay him handsomely for that. You know, because then, yes, you're in a vulnerable position, and yes, you're paying a lot of money, but you're paying it to someone that you feel really confident with their professionalism and their capabilities in the short term while you try to figure out the solution for the long term. Clive, if you don't mind, with the last few minutes, can we just focus on the game for a second?
Yeah.
I know, it's tedious, but in your mind, I mean, when you look at the game, are there certain specific areas or performances that you say, you know, continue to be the issue for me? I mean, one thing I noticed early on in the game is Bellerin had a rare sort of overlap, fired the ball into the box, and Aubameyang standing at the corner flag when he did it. I mean, this is my point about utilizing your resources. You look at the goal Aubameyang scored, classic sort of poacher's goal, finds a pocket of space on a set piece, gets himself available, ball happens to come to him, and he, you know, rockets it home. I just don't see how we can have our golden boot winner standing out on the touchline. Like, the decisions we make, right? Like, shunting our golden boot winner out wide so we can play our out of form second striker because we don't want to play our 72 million pound striker, a winger, is a weird paradigm that has kind of taken hold. Just sort of 30,000 foot view about this game. What's consistently going wrong for Arsenal that happened against Brighton?
Nothing can be sustained. So this has been a trend from maybe last season, a new trend. We can't sustain performance. So last year we sort of linked it down to Emery, the fact we threw away halves of football. We weren't sure if it could be first half or second half. It was all different. We found it exciting. We loved the half-time substitutions, and we sort of rolled with it. Then we thought, actually, this is crap. We're not very good. I think last night the game started off pretty placid, and Brighton sort of worked out that we were sort of petrified of our own shadow, and they started to move the ball around and push us back. We kept giving away corner after corner to a team full of giants, and it was just the inevitable actually happened. I just felt we were petrified. I really did. And maybe it's me, or maybe I was petrified. So I just felt there was fear everywhere. I was watching Lacazette. I was literally watching him not post up, stand next to people, get pushed off the ball. I'm thinking, you don't want it. I was watching Ozil. Ozil was somebody that always wants it, not want it, not make angles. Don't want it. Fall over the ball. He's as smooth as silk. I never see him fall over. He's got wonderful balance. Things weren't happening. People that are decent players did not want it, you know. So that concerned me. Obviously, the rocket was led at half time, and we came out and we just upped our levels and we just upped our intensity, and we looked great for 20 minutes or so. Didn't score the second goal when we really needed it, and then the doubt set in again. And the doubt set in. We can't sustain it. The departments become disconnected, and we start to worry about the outcome. And that's where confidence comes in. You can't see the win. You just can't see it. And even though it was right there for you, you smash crosses in where you just need to feather them in. You don't quite deliver under pressure like you should do. So you're hoping someone's going to get you out of it. And everyone else, every player is on there thinking, I hope someone else is going to do it because I can't do it because I'm worried about my ability to deliver under pressure. And that's part of the whole environment of the club at the moment. The fans, I don't blame the fans on this one. I think the fans are generally worried, and they struggle to support because they were petrified. You know, I don't think, you know, I wasn't there, so Tim may say something different, but I didn't see a mass turning on the players per se. I just felt we were just all realizing this is really bad. This is really bad, and this is Brighton, and Brighton are growing in confidence, and they are absolutely outplaying us in the last quarter of a game, and that is something that we just struggle to cope with Arsenal people, and so do the players. And my big worry. I've got loads of worries at the moment. Freddie, to be fair to him, is absolutely excellent at assessing what the problem statement is. He worked out the Norwich game what the problem is. He knows this is confidence related. He's been in dressing rooms where confidence has dropped and got back up. This is really about getting into people's psyche and mindset to remind them who they are, remind them how they play, and be much more positive and try to build the confidence from within. It almost isn't about moving the shapes around, although I think it would help Elliot. I think there's something much more than that to try to rebuild these players. This isn't the time to criticise massively because they're shadows at the moment. They're shadows. Some are not good enough. Many are not good enough. And we spoke about that in the recruitment part of the podcast. But they're here. And we haven't got a window till January. We haven't got a window till the summer. They're here and they absolutely need their confidence rebuilding. And I'm hoping at West Ham that happens, but I am just hoping nothing more than that.
Yeah, I guess, look, I know you disagree with me, Clive, and and understandably because of, the shit opinions and stuff, but like, I think there is a way to use this squad that gets a hell of a lot more out of it. I think we always have a binary. They're shit. The players are shit. We're totally shit. No coach could do anything. And I'm not saying you're saying this, but like on Twitter and on the internet, things tend to be a binary. We're great, and the manager's shit. We're shit, and the manager's great. And they're like, there's no nuance. And I'm sorry, but like, yes, the center backs are shit. Totally shit. Completely agree. But like, we bought Tierney. We must like him. He probably has a decent opportunity to make us better if we give him a run in the side. We bought Pepe. Give him a run in the side. We have the Golden Boot winner. Put him in the box. Play Aubameyang, Martinelli, and Pepe. Play Guendouzi, Torreira, and Xhaka. Or, if you want to play Ozil at the 10, fine, beats me, whatever you feel like. Pick two center backs by rolling dice. Get Bellerin and Tierney out there and Leno. They're not going to win enough games to get us top four now. But at some point, the square peg round hole thing has to stop. Being a little too clever by half has to stop. I think, I want to be clear. A good coach, a good experienced coach with tactical innovations and a clear plan for how he wants to play with this team would struggle to get top four, but would probably be in the frame. He certainly wouldn't be struggling against a potential relegation slide. And I'm not putting it on Freddie. He hasn't been in the job long enough to make a difference. I also don't think it's fair, as I previously stated, to have expectations of a guy who has 2 half seasons as an assistant coach and 1 season as a U23 coach. Freddie could go on to be the next Pep, but not at this stage of his career and not with this mess he's been handed. So let's see where it goes from here. But look, we're at West Ham and then it's Manchester City. And at some point you just say, I don't like seeing Arsenal embarrassed. It makes for fun banter online and gallows humor and ha ha ha, we suck, we could go down. But you know what? Our great club is being embarrassed. And I think the people that really own it are Raul and Vinay and Edu and of course Stan. I think the lack of consideration for competitiveness in favor of commercial success has led to blind spots. I think you're absolutely right, Clive, that we make decisions from a position of panic. I think, Tim, you're right. We're extremely vulnerable. And because we have bad people in charge, I think we're vulnerable to making those decisions again. And now we're still the guys who will probably be the consigliere for the club, guys like Kia and guys like Mendes, have their own interests at heart. And again, I think January, Ian Wright, the great Ian Wright, is on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. We may see other Arsenal strikers being on a similar show in January. So all good things, more to come. In any event, we'll have more podcasts. We'll do our analytics pod rolling out soon on Patreon. We'll have the transfer rumor stuff starting up. I'm sure it will be really exciting players that we'll be signing in January to arrest the slide. And more than anything, we have each other. And I know these are tough times. So for those of you who are still sticking with us, we love you and we really do appreciate it. Tim's on Twitter at Roberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
I got to say, Clive, I came away from rewatching the Norwich game with you really sort of buoyed with a new optimism based on some things I saw that this thing could get fixed. And Brighton kind of beat the shit out of me. So I'm right back where I was. But
the pressure of the Emirates, mate. The pressure of the Emirates. Yeah. I think we're struggling under the weight of it all. So watch this space.
Well, we go to West Ham. No pressure there. Okay, my name's Alex Smith, Blackman, Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Give us a 5-star review and just hang in there with us. We're all going to get through this one way or another. I'm not going to do what everybody wants, which is me to say West Ham 10, Arsenal 0. Sorry. Maybe I'll save that for City because that seems more plausible. In any event, we do love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, West Ham 0.